Morrissey is the pop star who performs with plants and flowers sticking out of his back pocket, and whose heroes aren't rock stars, but Oscar Wilde and James Dean, another sensitive young chap about whom he's written a book. In view of his rather fey appeal to sixth formers and bedsit adolescents, I first asked Morrissey what life at school had been like for him. Tough?
Yes, it was quite tough because I went to a very threadbare school, a school which it ultimately got some global attention for being the most brutal school in the country, capital punishment. You virtually didn't have to do a thing to be persistently whipped.
Did you get beaten?
For some obscure reason, I always avoided it. I always thought they considered me far too delicate to be caned. I constantly thought that they presumed that if they hit me, that I'd just disappear. But it was really quite an absurd school, and working class, the only thing that you could possibly do was woodwork. And obviously, when you left school, you would, go into a factory or something. There was no question of being artistic or of reading books or of thinking about anything specific. I remember at one instance, all the pupils were asked to write about their favourite book. And I wrote about the dictionary. And I remember I was virtually expelled for being so obstreperous and perverse. So it was that kind of school. It was the kind of school that gave no scope whatsoever for individuality.
Did you have any friends among the other pupils?
I did. I must say that I did. I did seem to attract the more obscure elements of the school. The kind of person that never had any friends. The very lanky, bespectacled, spotted failure somehow was attracted to me, and I thought that was quite interesting.
Is it true that you spent 3 months secluded in your bedroom as a teenager?
Much more than that, I'm sure, but I do distinctly remember one period where I hardly ever left the room for a 3-month period.
What were you doing in there?
Well, that's a good question. I used to write furiously, and I was just really nailed to the typewriter, and I was swimming in paper and all kind of introspective things like that. I wasn't exactly your average teenager.
Did you want to stay there?
The alternatives weren't very glamorous. If I left the room, I'd probably end up at some obscure pub or wandering about the park, which was always quite dangerous. I really had no options. I mean, I was living the kind of life, I was unemployed for a very long time and I had no money. And I was living a life to a large degree that I didn't choose, being financially absurdly embarrassed. So it really seemed to me that I would never ever settle for second best in life. That if I couldn't have exactly what I wanted, then I would have absolutely nothing. Because to me, nothing always seemed more important to me than a false something or something that I didn't really want. So therefore I stayed in. I did nothing. I just wrote, and I was determined that if I couldn't have exactly what I wanted, then I would disappear into the woodwork.
Because most teenagers become obsessed with sex. Did you go through that period?
No, I never did. I think I brushed quite close when I was 19 and 20, but previous to that period I didn't give it a great deal of thought, and it wasn't really something that I really needed to think about, because in my life it didn't really exist. I was aware that certain things should have occurred and certain things should interest me, and I was aware of teenagers around me frolicking about and being incredibly inconsequential and free-thinking, which I never was.
You regret not sowing your wild oats, etc.?
Yes, I do. I do regret that.
In those days, did you spend any evenings fumbling in the back seats of cinemas?
Fumbling in haystacks? No, I certainly didn't. Whenever I went to cinemas, I always raced for the front seat, I'm afraid. I was that boring.
You say in other interviews that you're now celibate. Is that true?
Yes, I'm afraid so. I don't have a certificate, but I can only say that I am.